Hey, this is Lynn Pryor, and this is just a quick word. Can we talk about faith for a moment? Because I think faith is one of the most misused words in the English language. Or maybe I should call it one of the most abused words. I mean, faith is an incredible thing, but far too many of us make faith just whatever we want it to be. We give faith our own definition and assume everyone's just fine with that. But what makes faith faith? Many often refer to faith as their religious practices, as though to say, I practice the Mormon faith, or it's a religious group they belong to. I'm of the Hindu faith. But others see faith as a set of tenets they hold to. I believe the Christian faith. Well, our faith should be seen in what we practice and do, and faith should draw us into a group of like minded believers, and faith should be grounded in what we believe. But all those fall woefully short of what the Bible calls faith. Hebrews 11:1 describes faith in this way. Faith is the reality of what is hoped for and the proof of what is not seen. Now, in that verse, I don't want you to read hope in this passage as we often use hope. I hope my wife picks up Pop Tarts at the store, or I hope my team wins the playoffs. See, we often use hope as what we really, really want to see happen. And with that mindset, we've relegated faith into just wishful thinking. Or even worse, some want to mix in some New Age theology, thinking that if they believe hard enough, what they hope for will happen. That's just baloney. I mean, that's placing faith in your ability to believe. But we need to place our faith in something a whole lot more solid and reliable. And what is that faith and hope grounded in? Faith, our belief, our hope is to be grounded in God's Word. Faith is our response which takes God at His Word and acts on it. Let me give you an example. Hebrews 11 gives us several examples. Read through the men and women listed there, and while each situation is unique, they shared one thing in common. They took God at His word and trusted Him. In Hebrews 11, you see that those who conquered kingdoms by faith in God and displayed God's power in some incredible ways. You read of others who died by the sword, some who were cut in half, and others were grossly mistreated. But they all took God at His word and trusted Him. No matter what they experienced, great victory or horrible death, they took God at His word and they trusted Him. So that gets me back to my original question. Where does faith come from? Well, it comes as we read and hear God's word. Romans 10:17 says this, faith comes from what is heard, and what is heard through the message about Christ. So as we move into 2024, I pray that you grow in your faith. But growth in faith will happen as you read God's Word. Make it your goal to read God's Word this year. But don't just read it, respond to it. Take God at His Word and act upon what His Word says. In Luke 5, Simon Peter and some others allowed Jesus to preach from their boat. Meanwhile, they were mending their nets. But they heard truths coming from Jesus' mouth, and a faith in Him began to stir. When Jesus told them to set out for deep water to fish, the directive sounded odd to these men who just spent a fruitless night fishing. But they had already heard Jesus' teaching, believed what they heard, and therefore they were willing to trust Him in this command. That's faith. They took Jesus at His word and acted on it. And Jesus blessed their obedience with abundance. Now, I can't promise you that kind of abundance if you embrace God's word and act upon it, but I can promise you an abundant life. As Jesus said, I have come this so that you may have life and have it in abundance. That kind of abundance of faith begins when you open God's word. Well, this has been Lynn Pryor, and thank you for joining me for this quick word. I hope you'll subscribe and join me as I post these twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays.